Welcome back to Shawn Thinking Out Loud. I'm Shawn Armstrong, and today we're going to talk about one of the most important geopolitical, cultural, philosophical, romantic, nutritional, and deeply stupid questions of the modern age. Why did I move to Brazil? People expect a serious answer. They expect something like taxes, immigration, retirement, cost of living, political fatigue, weather, or maybe I fell in love with the language. Those things matter. But if I'm being honest, and apparently that is still legal in small pockets of the internet, part of the reason I moved to Brazil was fourth wave feminism and KFC. That sounds insane. It sounds like the title of a book nobody should write, but everybody would secretly read. Fourth wave feminism and KFC made me leave America. There it is. There's the memoir. Slap a sad eagle on the cover, put a bucket of fried chicken in one claw and dating app in the other, and we're off to the races. But under the joke, there's a serious point. America didn't lose its mind all at once. It got there one stupid slogan at a time. One "I'm the prize" video at a time. One a body positivity lecture from someone who gets winded walking past the salad bar at a Golden Corral at a time. One dating profile at a time where a woman with 3 kids, 2 bankruptcies, no job, an OnlyFans link, and the emotional stability of a raccoon in a washing machine announces that she's a high-value woman who won't settle. And before somebody starts hyperventilating into their reusable grocery bag, let me say this clearly. This episode isn't all women are bad. That's stupid. Women aren't the problem. Men aren't the problem. The problem is a culture that tells people they deserve rewards without standards, admiration without achievement, commitment without character, and physical attraction without physical discipline. That disease infects men and women. There are men walking around built like melted candles calling themselves alpha males because they bought a beard comb and watched 3 podcasts about testosterone. There are men who live with their mother, smoke weed all day, own one fitted hat, and think they're owed a submissive 20-year-old wife who cooks, cleans, and looks like a fitness model. No, sit down. You're not a king. You're a dependent contractor in your mother's basement. So yes, men get hit today too. But today's episode is about a particular American cultural disease that got wrapped in feminist language, amplified by social media, deep-fried in convenience food, and then served back to us as empowerment. And a lot of men looked around and said, I think I'm done here. Some went overseas. Some checked out of dating. Some got married to women from cultures that had not yet turned self-importance into a civic religion. Some just bought a dog and accepted that at least the dog is happy to see them when they come home. For me, Brazil was part practical decision, part personal decision, and part cultural escape hatch. Brazil isn't paradise. Let's kill that fantasy right now. Brazil has crime. Brazil has bureaucracy. Brazil has corruption. Brazil has poverty. Brazil has political weirdness. Brazil has customer service moments where you realize Dante never fully explored administrative hell. Brazil has its own problems. But Brazil also gave me something America seemed determined to beat out of itself. Reality. People here still understand that men and women are different. They still understand that physical appearance matters. They still understand that family matters. They still understand that food is supposed to be food, not an industrial experiment covered in ranch dressing. They still understand that if you want to be treated like a prize, you need to bring something to the table besides attitude, trauma vocabulary, and an Amazon wish list. And that's where this episode is going. We're going to talk about the dating market. We're going to talk about fourth wave feminism. We're going to talk about American food culture. We're going to talk about Brazil as a reality check. And then we're going to talk about why a man can love his country, serve his country, fight for his country, write about his country, and still look around one day and say, I don't want to live inside this level of stupid anymore. Because that's what this is really about. Not hatred, not bitterness, not fantasy, standards. Reality, peace, and the right to say that if a woman is, with makeup, a 3, then maybe she should not be giving TED Talks about being a 9 or a 10. And yes, I know, somebody just crashed their Subaru. Let's begin.
Every time I tried to stand, they pushed me down. Now I've had enough, can't take it all around. It's time to be strong, time to be clear. No more being used, it's
There was a shift in American dating culture that a lot of people noticed but were afraid to say out loud. At some point, self-respect turned into delusion. At some point, don't let people treat you badly turned into everyone who doesn't worship you is insecure. At some point, know your worth turned into invent your worth and demand strangers finance the lie. That's where American dating culture started to become comedy. Bad comedy, expensive comedy, the kind of comedy where the audience is also the cleanup crew. You saw it everywhere. Dating apps, TikTok, Instagram, podcasts, reaction videos, women sitting in their cars filming themselves under lighting so aggressive it could interrogate a prisoner, explaining why they're the prize. And again, let's be fair, everybody should have self-respect. Nobody should tolerate abuse. Nobody should stay with someone who treats them like trash. That part is fine. That part is healthy. But what we got is not self-respect. What we got was entitlement with eyelashes. The phrase, "I'm the prize," became one of those little cultural landmines. It sounds harmless. It sounds motivational. But in practice, a lot of people used it to mean, I don't have to improve. I don't have to be pleasant. I don't have to be fit. I don't have to be loyal. I don't have to bring peace. I don't have to have discipline. I don't have to be feminine. I don't have to be kind. I don't have to be realistic. I simply exist, and therefore I should be selected. That's not confidence. That's a hostage demand, and the hostage is reality. Now here's where people get mad. A man will say, I'm not attracted to overweight women, and half the internet acts like he just burned down an orphanage. But women say they want a man over 6 feet tall, 6 figures, full head of hair, emotionally available, masculine but not too masculine, ambitious but always available, strong but never disagreeable, traditional but still somehow progressive, funny but not offensive, and spiritually grounded but always willing to be dragged to brunch with her friends who all hate men. And we're all supposed to treat that like a reasonable preference list. No, that's not a preference list. That's a Build-A-Bear workshop for narcissism. Men are allowed to have preferences. Women are allowed to have preferences. Adults are allowed to want what they want. But if you're going to demand a high-value partner, you need to ask one brutal question. Are you high value? That question is where the modern American dating conversation starts sounding like a smoke alarm with a low battery. Because people don't want to answer it. They want to say, I know my worth. Good. Prove it. They want to say, I bring feminine energy. Fine. What does that mean on a Tuesday when the bills are due? The house is messy, one of you is tired, and nobody is in the mood for your curated Instagram personality. They want to say, I deserve a provider. Fine. Can you provide peace? Can you provide loyalty? Can you provide discipline? Can you provide stability? Can you provide respect? Or are you just looking for a man to subsidize your unresolved personality defects? This is where the rating conversation comes in. People hate numbers. They hate the 1 to 10 scale. They say it's shallow. They say it's objectifying. They say it reduces people. Fine. Then stop acting like attraction doesn't exist. Because it does. And everybody knows it. Women know it. Men know it. Your grandmother knew it. Your dog knows it. That's why the dog barks at some people and sits politely for others. Even the dog is judging the room. The problem isn't that people notice attractiveness. The problem is that modern culture tried to separate attraction from reality. So now you have people who don't want to be judged visually, physically, emotionally, morally, financially, or socially, but they still want the benefits that come from being judged highly in those categories. That's the trick. They don't want the test. They want the promotion. And yes, there are women out there who, with makeup, are a 3, lecturing men like they're a 9 or a 10. That's a real thing. Anybody who's been on dating apps has seen it. You swipe through and think, ma'am, you're speaking with tremendous confidence for someone whose profile picture looks like it was taken during a hostage recovery operation. Now, that sounds harsh. It is harsh. But harsh doesn't automatically mean false. A lot of modern American culture is built on protecting people from feedback. You can't tell someone they're overweight. You can't tell someone they're rude. You can't tell someone their standards are unrealistic. You can't tell someone they're not attractive enough to demand the top 10% of men. You can't tell someone that being loud is not the same as being strong. You can't tell someone that being difficult is not the same as being independent. You can't tell someone that trauma doesn't make them royalty. So what happens? They get worse. They get more entitled. They get more isolated. They get more angry. Then they blame men. But men aren't innocent here either. A lot of men helped build this disaster. Weak men inflated egos they had no intention of committing to. Lonely men showered attention on women they didn't respect. Thirsty men rewarded bad behavior because they wanted access. Men on dating apps swiped right on everything with a pulse and then acted shocked when women started believing they had unlimited options. Congratulations, gentlemen. You taught the market that attention is free. Then you complained when the price of commitment went up. That's your part of the mess. Own it. But the American dating market became especially poisoned because it stopped rewarding compatibility and started rewarding performance. The dating profile became an advertisement. The first date became an interview. The relationship became a negotiation. Marriage became a liability contract. And everybody walked in armed with therapy words they learned from 30-second videos made by people who should not be trusted with a goldfish. I have boundaries. Good. Do you have accountability? I know my worth. Good. Do you know your flaws? I need a masculine man. Good. Are you willing to be feminine? I want a traditional provider. Good. Are you traditional? I refuse to settle. Good. What are you actually offering that makes settling beneath you? That's the question America refused to ask. Brazil asked it without asking. Because in Brazil, reality hits faster. You walk outside, you see women who take care of themselves. You see men who still approach. You see people dressed like they understand other humans have eyes. You see social life that still happens in public, not only through apps and resentment. You see standards operating without a national HR department issuing a memo. And after years of watching America pretend that attraction is oppressive, discipline is fat-phobic, masculinity is dangerous, femininity is submission, and entitlement is empowerment, Brazil started to look less like an escape and more like a return to oxygen. That's the first piece. The American dating market got sick, not because women gained rights, not because women became educated, not because women can earn money. Those aren't the problem. The problem is that a culture took legitimate female freedom and converted it into consumer narcissism, and then it told men they were insecure if they noticed the difference. No, men noticed. Some men complained. Some men adapted. Some men checked out. Some men left. And some men, like me, looked around and said, there has to be a place where every conversation doesn't begin with a lecture and end with a demand. Brazil wasn't perfect, but it was different enough. And different, at that point, was enough to get my attention. If you want more of this kind of political and cultural analysis, check out my book, The American Left, From Liberalism to Despotism. It tracks how the American left move away from old-school liberalism and into identity politics, institutional control, and ideological bullying dressed up as compassion. If you listen to this show and wonder how we got from equal rights to everyone walking around with a grievance resume, that book is for you. The American Left, From Liberalism to Despotism by Shawn Armstrong. Available through the usual book platforms. Now back to the show. Fourth wave feminism didn't begin as women on TikTok calling themselves queens while eating gas station nachos. That's important. It began around serious issues. Sexual harassment, abuse, assault, rape culture, workplace misconduct, online harassment, body shaming. Those aren't imaginary issues. Any man with a functioning brain and a mother he respects should be able to say that. Women have dealt with real abuse. Women have dealt with real discrimination. Women have dealt with predatory men. Women have dealt with being dismissed, mocked, cornered, threatened, and treated as decorations in rooms where they had earned their place. That's real. And if you can't admit that, you're not telling the truth. But movements aren't judged only by what they claim to oppose. They're judged by what they become when they gain power. And fourth wave feminism became something ugly in American culture. It became less about protecting women from abuse and more about protecting women from accountability. It became less about equality and more about immunity. It became less about justice and more about narrative control. It became a system where any criticism of female behavior could be recorded as misogynist. Recoded as misogyny. Any preference from men could be recoded as insecurity. Any standard could be recoded as oppression. Any rejection could be recoded as male fragility. That's not liberation. That's emotional fascism with better branding. And yes, I said emotional fascism, because when a movement tells you that disagreement is violence, criticism is hatred, jokes are oppression, and your personal preference are evidence of moral failure, you're not dealing with a normal conversation anymore. You're dealing with social control. Fourth wave feminism was powered by social media. That matters. Earlier feminism moved through books, organizations, protests, magazines, universities, court cases, and workplace disputes. Fourth wave feminism moved through hashtags, viral videos, call-outs, screenshots, public shaming, and algorithmic outrage. That changed everything. Because social media doesn't reward wisdom. It rewards intensity. It doesn't reward nuance. It rewards performance. It doesn't reward maturity. It rewards public emotional explosions that can be clipped, shared, stitched, and monetized. So the loudest, most damaged, most attention-hungry voices rose to the top. Not the wisest, not the most balanced, not the most honest, the loudest. The most dramatic, the most willing to turn private failure into public doctrine. A woman gets cheated on, suddenly all men are trash. A woman picks bad men for 10 years, suddenly society failed her. A woman ignores every decent man around her because he was boring, short, bald, normal, responsible, or didn't have enough Instagram energy. Then at 37, she says men are intimidated by strong women. No, some men are intimidated by strong women. Some men are weak. That happens. But a lot of men aren't intimidated. They're tired. There's a difference. Men aren't automatically intimidated because they walk away. Sometimes they're making a decision. Sometimes they're doing math. Sometimes they're thinking, this woman is going to turn my house into a courtroom. Sometimes they're thinking, every disagreement with her will become an evidence file. Sometimes they're thinking, I can already hear the podcast she'll record about me. And they leave. Then she calls that insecurity. Of course she does. Because if the man is insecure, she doesn't have to examine herself. That's the magic trick. Fourth wave feminism gave a lot of American women a vocabulary for never being wrong. Toxic masculinity, patriarchy, male fragility, internalized misogyny, body shaming, fat phobia, emotional labor, gaslighting, narcissist, trauma response, unsafe, problematic, red flag. Some of those words describe real things. Gaslighting is real. Narcissism is real. Emotional abuse is real. Patriarchal abuse exists, but in popular culture, those words got handed out like Halloween candy to people who had no discipline, no self-awareness, and no interest in using them carefully. So now every disagreement is gaslighting. Every man with a preference is shallow. Every man who expects peace is controlling. Every man who wants a woman in decent shape is fat-phobic. Every man who wants a woman without a dozen public emotional breakdowns is insecure. Every man who says, I don't want to date a woman with 3 kids by 3 men is judgmental. Well, yes, he's judgmental. Dating is judgment. Marriage is judgment. Choosing a partner is one of the most judgment-heavy decisions a human being will ever make. You're deciding who gets access to your home, your body, your children, your money, your future, your peace, your name, and your deathbed. You better judge. And if you don't judge, you're not loving, you're gambling. And Americans have become very bad gamblers. Now, the great lie of modern dating culture is that everybody deserves their dream partner. No, they don't. They deserve basic human dignity. You deserve legal rights. You deserve not to be abused. You deserve not to be assaulted. You deserve not to be trapped. You don't deserve a 6'2" man with abs, money, patience, masculine frame, emotional fluency, and a willingness to pretend your attitude is cute. That's not a civil right. That's a preference. And preferences require competition. If you want a top-tier man, you're competing with other women who want that man. That's reality. If you want a top-tier woman, you're competing with other men who want that woman. That's reality too. Nobody gets to skip the market because they found a slogan. The funniest part is that fourth wave feminism often talks like it hates male judgment, but a lot of its loudest cultural products still crave male validation. The selfies, the dating complaints, the men are trash posts written specifically for men to see, the thirst traps followed by lectures about objectification, the claim that male attention is oppressive, posted under photos designed to attract male attention. That's where the comedy lives. You can't say, "Stop objectifying me," while using yourself as the object in the advertisement. You can't put yourself in the window and then scream when people notice the display. You can't build your entire online persona about being desirable and then pretend desire is a hate crime. Again, men do this too. Men post shirtless gym pictures, rented car shots, fake watches, tactical pants they've never tactically used, and quotes about wolves. Most of them aren't wolves. They're golden retrievers with a caffeine problem. But nobody built an entire academic industry to protect those men from mockery. They get mocked. Correctly. What happened with American women in the online arena is that mockery became forbidden. Criticism became forbidden. Standards became forbidden. And once you remove feedback, self-awareness dies. That's how you get someone who is physically average, emotionally chaotic, financially unstable, spiritually confused, politically hostile, allergic to accountability, and still convinced she is the prize. Not because she's evil, because culture lied to her. It told her that wanting more means deserving more. It told her that confidence creates value. It told her that being loud creates strength. It told her that rejecting men proves independence. It told her that beauty standards are oppressive, while still letting her use beauty when it benefits her. It told her that motherhood, marriage, loyalty, femininity, and domestic peace were traps. Then it wonders why so many women were lonely, angry, medicated, and filming themselves crying in parked cars. America built a cultural machine that produces loneliness and then sells therapy words to the victims. That's a business model. A disgusting one, but a business model. And this is where Brazil became relevant. Brazil has feminism. Brazil has progressive politics. Brazil has loud women. Brazil has drama. Brazil has divorce. Brazil has chaos. Nobody should land here and expect a 1950s fantasy in Portuguese. That would be stupid. Brazilian women aren't submissive robots. Anyone who thinks that has never argued with a Brazilian woman. Good luck. Bring water. Stretch first. But the broader culture still carries more open honesty about attraction, sexuality, beauty, and gender difference. People don't pretend bodies are irrelevant. They don't pretend masculinity and femininity are imaginary social hallucinations. They don't pretend every preference needs approval from a university department. There's more public acceptance that men like beautiful women and women like masculine men. There's still a strong beauty culture. There's still pressure to look good. There's still more directness about physical appearance. And after America spent years acting like noticing obesity was a hate crime, directness started to feel refreshing. Not always kind, not always gentle, but refreshing. Because reality doesn't stop being real because Americans discovered nicer vocabulary. Fourth wave feminism gave America an emotional vocabulary. Fine, but it often removed moral vocabulary. It gave people words for harm, but it removed words for duty. It gave people words for boundaries, but it removed words for sacrifice. It gave people words for trauma, but it removed words for self-control. It gave people words for identity, but it removed words for character. And that's why it became unbearable, because a culture built on grievance can't produce peace. It produces lawsuits, it produces podcasts, it produces TikToks, it produces therapy bills. It produces men and women staring at each other across a battlefield of mutual suspicion, both sides armed with phones, both sides convinced they're oppressed, and neither side willing to cook dinner. That's not civilization. That's a group project nobody wants to lead. Now let's talk about KFC, because no serious discussion of civilizational decline is complete until the Colonel walks into the room holding a bucket of consequences. America has a food problem. And no, this isn't some elite lecture from a Cal cult member with a yoga mat and a rescue ferret. I like food, I like barbecue, I like pizza, I like fried chicken, I like burgers. I grew up American. I'm not sitting here pretending I survived on mineral water, grilled fish, and moral superiority. I know what a real plate looks like. I know what comfort food is. I've eaten like a soldier, like a bachelor, like a tired working man, and like someone who made decisions at midnight that should have required adult supervision. So this isn't about perfection. It's about environment. America makes it easy to be fat. Brutally easy. Absurdly easy. So easy that staying in shape starts to feel like resisting a military occupation. Every road has fast food. Every gas station has snacks. Every store has candy. Every checkout line is a trap. Every drink is large enough to hydrate a mule team. Every restaurant portion looks like it was designed by someone trying to sedate a family of 4. And then people act shocked when the population expands. Really? This is the mystery? You built a country where you can get fried chicken, pizza, burgers, fries, donuts, soda, ice cream, and microwave burritos within 5 minutes of almost anywhere, and now you're shocked the national waistline looks like it filed for an expansion permit. Come on. America didn't get overweight because people suddenly became morally weak overnight. That's too simple. It got overweight because industry, convenience, stress, suburban design, screen life, cheap calories, bad habits, and emotional eating all linked arms and marched directly into the living room. Then fourth wave culture walked in behind them and said, "You're perfect exactly as you are." No. You're valuable as a human being exactly as you are. That's different. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Your blood pressure is not a social construct. Your knees don't care about your empowerment post. Your heart doesn't read your captions. Your pancreas isn't impressed by your confidence. This is where body positivity went off the rails. Originally, the idea had some value. Don't hate yourself. Don't starve yourself. Don't abuse your body. Don't treat people as worthless because they're overweight. Don't mock someone into despair. Fine. Reasonable. But then it turned into something else. It turned into denial. It turned into all bodies are healthy. No, they're not. It turned into you can't tell health by looking. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can. If someone is carrying 100 extra pounds, you're not committing a hate crime by noticing gravity still works. And this is where American dating culture became ridiculous. A woman can be 140 pounds, 180 pounds, 220 pounds, whatever number you want, and the number alone doesn't tell the whole story. Height matters, muscle matters, frame matters, age matters, health matters, proportion matters. Some women at 140 look fantastic. Some women at 140 don't. Some women at 170 look strong and healthy. Some don't. Same with men. A 220-pound man can be muscular, or he could look like he lost a fight with a recliner. Numbers alone aren't the whole truth, but eyes exist. That's the part America tried to outlaw. Eyes exist. People see you. People see me. People see all of us. We can say nice words. We can be polite. We can be decent, but we see. So when someone lectures men about being a 9 or a 10, and the whole room can see that she's not, the problem isn't her weight alone. The problem is the delusion, the attitude, the demand that everyone else participate in the fantasy. Beauty isn't the same as human value. Let me make that clear. A woman can be unattractive and still be a good woman. A woman can be overweight and still be loyal, kind, intelligent, funny, nurturing, faithful, and worth marrying. A beautiful woman can be a nightmare with good lighting. Every man over 30 knows that. Beauty gets attention. Character keeps respect. But dating attraction still matters. Physical standards still matter. Health still matters. And pretending they don't matter is one of the dumbest lies modern culture tells. America's problem is that it built a food culture that makes physical decline easy, then built an ideology that makes criticism forbidden. That's a deadly combination. KFC on every corner is one problem. KFC in every corner plus you're a goddess no matter what is a second problem. KFC on every corner plus you're a goddess no matter what plus men are shallow if they notice is when the whole thing turns into national satire. Pizza Hut too. Pizza Hut used to be a place. You went there, you sat down, you burned the roof of your mouth on the cheese hot enough to reforge steel, you played arcade games, you got a personal pan pizza for reading books. Back when schools bribed children into literacy with pepperoni, that was America. Flawed? Greasy, but at least coherent. Now fast food is everywhere and nowhere. It's delivery, it's apps, it's late night cravings, it's stress eating, it's people sitting alone in cars eating enough calories to power a small village while watching videos about self-love. That's the modern mood. Consumption and affirmation. Eat more, move less, blame others, demand admiration. Brazil's not innocent. Let me be honest enough to ruin the easy punchline. Brazil has rising obesity. Brazil has processed food. Brazil has delivery apps. Brazil has soda. Brazil has sugar. Brazil has fast food. Brazil has people getting heavier. This is not some healthy utopia where everyone eats mangoes and jogs in slow motion while samba plays in the background. That's tourist brochure nonsense. But the environment still feels different. There's not the same sense of total fast food saturation everywhere you turn. There are KFCs in Brazil. There are Pizza Huts in Brazil. There are McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, and other chains. But depending on where you live, you're not surrounded by the same American landscape of drive-through temptation every half mile. In a lot of places, food culture is still more tied to rice, beans, meat, fresh fruit, local restaurants, bakeries, markets, and actual meals. Not always healthy, but more recognizable as food. And Brazilian beauty culture still applies pressure, sometimes too much pressure. Brazil can be brutally appearance conscious. Let's not pretend it's gentle. People notice bodies here. They comment, they compare, they judge. They value fitness, shape, presentation, and sexuality in a way Americans often pretend not to, while secretly doing the exact same thing. The difference is that Brazil is less fake about it. Americans say all bodies are beautiful, then quietly sort people by attractiveness online. Brazil says you're getting fat and then offers you coffee. Both systems have problems, but one of them is less delusional. And after living in America long enough, the delusion becomes exhausting. Because the problem isn't that people are overweight. The problem is that you're not allowed to say the culture is making people overweight. The problem is not that some women are not physically attractive. The problem is that they can still demand top-tier treatment while mocking the men who notice the mismatch. The problem isn't that people struggle. Everybody struggles. The problem is that struggle got converted into identity. And once your problem becomes your identity, improvement starts to feel like betrayal. That's poisonous. If being overweight becomes your identity, losing weight feels like surrendering to oppression. If being angry at men becomes your identity, loving a man feels like betrayal. If being independent becomes your identity, cooperation feels like submission. If trauma becomes your identity, healing feels like losing your special status. That's what America did to itself. It turned problems into flags. Then it wondered why nobody wanted to lower them. So yes, KFC matters, Pizza Hut matters, not because fried chicken and pizza are evil. They're not. Food is food. Have a slice, eat the chicken, enjoy your life. But if the culture is built around constant consumption, constant affirmation, constant excuse-making, and constant hostility towards standards, the result isn't freedom. The result is decay with dipping sauce. And that, in one weird sentence, is part of why Brazil looked better. Not perfect, better. A place where food still felt more human. A place where women still seemed more connected to physical reality. A place where public life still had energy. A place where attraction wasn't always treated like a federal investigation. A place where a man could look around and think, people here still know mirrors work. This episode is also a good time to mention Dismantling the Republic, the role of progressive elites in America's descent into tribalism. That book deals with what happens when a country stops thinking like citizens and starts thinking like competing grievance groups. If you want to understand how political elites, institutions, media habits, and cultural fragmentation tear down national unity, that book is built for that fight. Dismantling the Republic by Shawn Armstrong, available through the usual book platforms. Now let's talk about Brazil, because whenever an American man says he moved to Brazil, people immediately start acting weird. Some assume he's running from taxes, some assume he's chasing women, some assume he has some tropical fantasy, some assume he couldn't make it in America, some assume he wants a submissive woman, some assume he watched too many travel videos made by men wearing linen shirts and speaking like they discovered sunlight. No, Brazil is a real country, not a fantasy island, not a dating resort, not a postcard, a country with people, with problems, with pride, with crime, with beauty, with chaos, with warmth, with frustration, with bureaucracy so absurd it makes you wonder if Kafka had a Brazilian cousin. But Brazil also gives you a different rhythm, a different social atmosphere, a different relationship with the body, a different relationship with food, a different relationship with gender, a different relationship with public life, and for a man burned out on American nonsense, the difference matters. The first thing you notice is that people are outside. That sounds basic, but in America, depending on where you live, public life can feel dead. People move from house to car to work, work to car to house. Then they sit inside and argue online with strangers who have anime profile pictures and untreated personality disorders. That's not society, that's a digital kennel. In Brazil, people are outside more. They walk. They sit in front of homes, they go to markets, they talk, they eat together, they gather, they stand around like human beings instead of isolated consumer units waiting for Amazon packages. It's not always romantic, sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's annoying, sometimes your neighbor's music makes you reconsider your stance on authoritarianism, but it's alive. America feels increasingly managed. Brazil feels more raw, more immediate, more human, more frustrating, yes, but also less sterile. And when it comes to women, Brazil is different. Let's be blunt. Brazilian women generally put effort into appearance. Not all. No country has a monopoly on beauty or discipline. There are beautiful American women. There are overweight Brazilian women. There are lazy people everywhere. Humanity is very committed to disappointing patterns. But culturally, Brazil still values feminine presentation in a way that America often mocks, politicizes, or treats as suspicious. Hair, clothes, makeup, fitness, shape, style, movement, confidence, sexuality. Brazilian
The fourth wave
culture
feminine
doesn't always
phase
hide
has
those
destroyed
things
the
behind
family,
academic
destroyed
panic. And it doesn't
child
pretend
rearing.
attraction is a moral crime. That doesn't mean every Brazilian woman is traditional. Don't be stupid. Brazilian women can be strong, loud, independent, jealous, opinionated, dramatic, loyal, loving, impossible, hilarious, and terrifying. Sometimes in the same hour. They're not meek, they're not silent, they're not waiting around like NPCs in a passport bro fantasy. They're women, real women, which means complicated. But there's a difference between strength and hostility. That's one thing American culture has forgotten. A strong woman isn't automatically hostile. A feminine woman isn't automatically weak. A traditional woman isn't automatically oppressed. A woman who wants a man isn't automatically dependent. A woman who cares about beauty isn't automatically shallow. A woman who cooks isn't automatically enslaved. A woman who wants a family isn't automatically brainwashed. Fourth wave feminism took too many normal human desires and turned them into political crime scenes. Marriage became suspect. Motherhood became suspect. Femininity became suspect. Male leadership became suspect. Male preference became suspect. Even attraction became suspect. Everything had to be interrogated. Everything had to be examined for power dynamics. Everything had to be filtered through oppression language. After a while, you don't feel like you're dating. You feel like you're standing trial. Brazil was a relief because the culture didn't seem as interested in putting every normal male-female interaction on a witness stand. Men flirt, women flirt back or reject them. People joke, people notice beauty, people talk, people fight. People reconcile, people dance, people eat, people gossip, people live. It's messy, but it's human. And yes, Brazil has feminist politics. Yes, Brazil has leftists. Yes, Brazil has social problems. Yes, Brazil has women who absorb the same global nonsense through social media. Nobody is sealed off from the internet anymore. Bad ideas cross borders faster than mosquitoes. But there's still a cultural difference. In America, the ideology often feels institutional. It's in HR departments, schools, entertainment, advertising, dating apps, corporate training, newsrooms, universities, movies, streaming shows, public language. You're surrounded by it. In Brazil, those ideas exist, but they often compete with older cultural instincts that still have muscle. Family, beauty, religion, community, gender difference, social pressure, directness, pride. The results aren't perfect, but they are different. And that difference can feel like sanity. The second thing Brazil gave me was perspective on American convenience. America is convenient, very convenient, absurdly convenient. You can get almost anything delivered. You can drive everywhere. You can buy everything in bulk. You can eat without cooking. You can live an entire week barely moving your body except open doors and complain about inflation. Convenience is seductive, but convenience has a price. It weakens people, physically, socially, mentally, spiritually. Brazil is less convenient in many ways, sometimes maddeningly so. Things take longer, systems break, people improvise, you wait, you adjust, you learn patience, or you develop blood pressure high enough to qualify as a weather system. But that friction can keep you connected to reality. You walk more, you deal with people more, you adapt more, you accept that life isn't always supposed to be seamless. America's problem is that it tried to remove friction from everything. Food, dating, shopping, entertainment, sex, politics, identity, everything became optimized for comfort. Then people became weaker and more offended by reality itself. Fourth wave feminism is part of that comfort culture. It tries to remove the emotional friction of criticism. Fast food culture tries to remove the physical friction of hunger and cooking. Dating apps try to remove the social friction of meeting people in real life. Streaming tries to remove the boredom that used to force people into hobbies. Delivery apps remove the need to leave the house. Remote work removes the office. Social media removes face-to-face consequences. Then people wonder why everyone is anxious, lonely, fat, angry, and convinced their feelings are sacred. Because friction shapes people. Remove too much friction and you don't create freedom, you create softness. And softness doesn't handle life well. Brazil restored some friction. Some of it I hate. Some of it I need. That's the honest answer. The third thing Brazil gave me was a different female standard. Again, not perfect, different. In America, a woman can be objectively average, out of shape, hostile, and still get told she's a queen. In Brazil, she's more likely to be told directly or indirectly, maybe fix that. That can be harsh. It can be too harsh. But feedback has value. A culture that never tells people the truth becomes a machine for producing delusion. And America produces delusion at industrial scale. It tells children they're special before they've done anything. It tells adults they're brave for posting opinions. It tells obese people they're healthy. It tells emotionally chaotic people they're healing. It tells lonely women they're intimidating. It tells broken men they're entrepreneurs because they bought a microphone. It tells everyone they're valid. Valid. That word got beaten to death. Your feelings are valid. Your identity is valid. Your journey is valid. Your truth is valid. Fine. Now pay your bills. Fix your health, control your temper, clean your house, stop lying, stop eating garbage, stop blaming everyone, stop calling yourself a 10 if you're not even trying to be a 6. There's the missing half of the conversation. Validation without discipline creates adults who can't function. Brazil didn't give them utopia. Brazil didn't give me utopia. It gave me a place where the lies felt less mandatory. That matters. It gave me distance from American outrage cycles. It gave me daily reminders that human life is bigger than ideological combat. It gave me women who, culturally speaking, seem less likely to treat masculinity as a public health threat. It gave me food that often felt less processed, even when it was not perfect. It gave me sunlight, language, challenge, frustration, beauty, and enough distance to look back at America and say, what the hell are you people doing? And that's an important question, because when you leave a place, you often see it more clearly. America is still powerful, still rich, still influential, still full of good people, still home to some of the hardest working, most generous, most inventive people on earth. But culturally, America is also doing something suicidal. It's training people to hate standards while demanding elite outcomes. That can't work. You can't hate discipline and demand health. You can't hate men and demand husbands. You can't hate femininity and demand male protection. You can't hate masculinity and demand male provision. You can't hate judgment and demand selection. You can't hate reality and demand happiness. Brazil reminded me of that. Reality has teeth. Better to respect it than get bitten while shouting slogans. For listeners connected to Brazil, immigration, or language, check out Do Brasil aos Estados Unidos, guia realista para recomeçar a prosperar. It's written for Brazilians who want a realistic guide to starting over in the United States. Not fantasy, not propaganda, not motivational fog. And if you're learning American English, check out American English at Home or Inglés Americano en Casa. It's built for Brazilian learners who want practical English for everyday life. Both books are by Shawn Armstrong and available through the usual book platforms. So did fourth wave feminism and KFC literally make me move to Brazil? No, not literally. Nobody from KFC came to my house with a bucket and deportation paperwork. No feminist professor appeared in my driveway shouting about patriarchy until I boarded a plane. That would at least make the story easier to explain. But culturally, symbolically, practically, yeah, they were part of it. Because they represent two sides of the same American decline. Fourth wave feminism represents ideological indulgence. KFC represents physical indulgence. Together, they represent a society that keeps telling people, do what feels good. Anyone who criticizes you is the enemy. That's the core disease. Feelings over standards, consumption over discipline, identity over character, attention over intimacy, excuses over improvement, comfort over truth. And after a while, you either adapt to that culture, fight it every day, or leave. I left. That doesn't mean I hate America. I served America. I wore the uniform. I lived the Army life. I know what duty means. I know what sacrifice means. I know what it means to love a country without pretending the country is perfect. Real love doesn't require blindness. Real love lets you say, this is wrong. And something is wrong. Something is deeply wrong when an entire generation of women is taught to view normal male expectations as oppression. Something is wrong when people can eat themselves into diseases while corporations and activists both profit from pretending nothing is happening. Something is wrong when young men are checking out of dating because the risk-to-reward ratio looks like a government contract written by lunatics. Something is wrong when marriage is treated as a trap, motherhood as a burden, masculinity as a defect, and accountability as cruelty. America has become very good at creating people who are offended by the conditions required for their own happiness. That's a brutal sentence, but it's true. You want love? You need sacrifice. You want marriage? You need humility. You want attraction? You need effort. You want respect? You need character. You want peace? You need self-control. You want a high-value partner? You need to become high-value. None of that changed because someone invented hashtags. None of that changed because fast food got cheaper. None of that changed because a woman in a car said she was the prize. Nature doesn't care. Men and women are still men and women. Bodies still matter, food still matters, beauty still matters, character still matters, money still matters, health still matters, loyalty still matters, family still matters, peace still matters. And reality always collects payment. Always. In America, the bill is still coming due. You can see it in obesity. You can see it in loneliness. You can see it in marriage rates. You can see it in birth rates. You can see it in dating apps. You can see it in angry women yelling at men online. You can see it in men checking out. You can see it in political tribalism. You can see it in the way people talk about each other like enemies instead of potential family. That's not healthy, and no amount of corporate messaging can make it healthy. Brazil gave me a different life. Not an easier life in every way, different. I had to learn, adjust, respect another culture, deal with language, deal with bureaucracy, deal with being the foreigner, deal with not having everything arranged for my convenience. That's good for a man. It knocks some arrogance off. It forces attention. It forces humility. It forces learning. And yes, Brazilian women were part of the appeal. Let's not lie. They're beautiful. They know they're women. They often carry themselves like women. They understand appearance. They understand attraction. They're not usually trying to convince you that femininity is some disease invented by Western civilization. Again, not all. No group is one thing. But enough that the cultural difference is obvious. A man notices that. And he should be allowed to say so without being treated like a criminal. Men like beauty. That's not oppression. That's biology. Women like strength, confidence, competence, status, and protection. That's not oppression either. That's biology mixed with culture. The goal isn't to abolish reality. The goal is to civilize it. Marriage civilizes desire. Family civilizes sex. Duty civilizes ambition. Faith civilizes ego. Discipline civilizes appetite. Standards civilize freedom. Remove those things and you don't get liberation. You get chaos with good marketing. America is selling chaos with good marketing. Brazil, for all its problems, still reminds me that life can be more direct than that. You can eat real food. You can walk outside. You can talk to people. You can admire women without filing a psychological impact statement. You can be a man without apologizing for taking up oxygen. You can live somewhere that still has enough rough edges to remind you that comfort isn't the highest good. And that's why I moved. Not because America has no beautiful women. It does. Not because Brazil has no problems. It does. Not because every American woman is a feminist caricature. She's not. Not because every Brazilian woman is some traditional angel. She isn't. I moved because the cultural direction of America became exhausting. I moved because I wanted peace. I moved because I wanted distance. I moved because I wanted to live somewhere where daily life didn't feel like a committee meeting run by people with unresolved childhood issues. I moved because the food culture, dating culture, political culture, and social culture in America all started pointing in the same direction. Less discipline, more entitlement, less honesty, more slogans, less health, more affirmation, less family, more performance, less reality, more theater. And I was done. That's the honest answer. Fourth wave feminism and KFC didn't buy the plane ticket, but they helped me decide I needed one. And if that offends somebody, fine. Be offended. The plane still landed. So what's the lesson here? It's not move to Brazil. Don't be stupid. Moving countries is serious. It's paperwork, language, culture, law, money, uncertainty, and 1,000 little humiliations that remind you being intelligent in one country doesn't mean you know how anything works in another. Brazil isn't a vacation me. It's not a cure for your bad decisions. It's not a magic wife factory. It's not paradise. It's a country. Respect it or stay home. The lesson is standards. That's it, standards. America is losing standards. Physical standards, romantic standards, moral standards, civic standards, speech standards, family standards, educational standards, food standards, leadership standards, and every time someone tries to restore standards, the culture screams. That's oppression. That's hate. That's shame. That's judgment. That's insecurity. That's toxic. No, sometimes it's correction. Sometimes it's truth. Sometimes it's the only thing standing between a civilization and complete soft-headed collapse. If you're overweight, you're still human, fix your health. If you're lonely, you're still human, fix your attitude. If you want love, become lovable. If you want respect, become respectable. If you want a good man, bring peace, loyalty, beauty, discipline, and character. If you want a good woman, bring strength, provision, protection, discipline, and character. If you want a better country, stop rewarding lies. And if you're a 3 with makeup, calling yourself a 10, maybe start with humility. That would be a historic breakthrough. America doesn't need more slogans. It needs mirrors. It needs scales. It needs dinner tables. It needs fathers. It needs mothers. It needs men willing to be men. It needs women willing to be women. It needs people who can hear criticism without collapsing into a lawsuit-shaped puddle. It needs food that doesn't come in a bucket every time someone feels sad. It needs standards again. That's why this topic matters. Because my move to Brazil is personal. but the reason behind it is cultural. Men are watching. Women are watching. Families are breaking. People are getting heavier, lonelier, angrier, and more medicated. And instead of telling the truth, the culture keeps handing them slogans. I'm not buying it. I left the aisle. This has been Shawn Thinking Out Loud. I'm Shawn Armstrong. If you want more of my work, check out my books including The American Left, Dismantling the Republic, Do Brasil aos Estados Unidos, American English at Home, and the Dragon Kempo 2.0 series. Read something useful. Train your body. Fix your standards. And for the love of all things decent, stop calling yourself the prize if your only contribution is attitude and a DoorDash history. Reality is undefeated.